Probably get started then. I think these girls have been short selling their bios, so I'm actually going to read Jessica, so I apologize for looking at my phone.
Oh,
but
the whole thing?
Not the whole thing, that's a long one. But just a few things about Jessica. She has her master's in counseling from Concordia University, Wisconsin, and bachelor's degree in speech communication from Baylor University. She's recently moved back. She was actually working in Colorado as a counselor, and you're a licensed professional counselor with a passion for career development.
Yes.
So with that, Jessica.
Thank you. Interviewing, normally that's kind of approached by an HR person, but I'm hoping that I can give you a few tips that I learned. I did a career development certificate with the National Career Development Association, so they're very current and kind of present in the market. So I learned a few fun things that I feel like I can be a slight expert in, so that's my beginning. So interviewing kind of makes everyone a little uncomfortable, I think. Once you have been in a few interviews, you get really excited about it, and then you bomb, or you're just anxious and you want to say so much and you don't know how to say it. So I think interviewing can cause just some anxiety. Has anyone kind of felt the excitement? And yeah. So for interviewing, when I was unemployed, I was like, I'm going to love it. This is going to be my hobby. I'm going to get good at interviewing because everyone hates interviewing. So I'm like, I'm going to be the person who loves it. So that's what I tried to do. Who's heard that interviewing is a two-way street? One person has heard it. Anyone else heard it? You're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. I'm going to challenge you to say that it's not a two-way street. So we're going to go over a couple of things, talk about how to not interview the interviewer, how to assess the company, but really how to get the offer. And once you get the offer, there's some other things you can do, but we all just want to get the offer. Times have changed. It's so competitive to even get an interview and then to get the offer. So we're going to talk about that. What's the purpose of a job interview? The employer's goals is to learn about your abilities, but really to select the best candidate for the job. And then your goals is to identify the company's needs, the work environment, determine if this position aligns well with your personal and professional objectives, but really to also get the offer. Here's a simple recipe for job search success. Research prior to the interview. I know we haven't had the technology section yet, but we touched on it in networking. The interviewer, look at LinkedIn, look at other employees, figure out as much as you can, try to get a connection. You can see on LinkedIn where people got their master's, where they got their bachelor's, where they've worked before. If you can make any connection while you're in the interview and say, oh, how'd you like your time living in Texas? Or, oh, it's really interesting, I used to volunteer at the same organization. That gives you that connection where they feel like they know you, they remember you from other candidates. Research the position prior to the interview. What I've been taught is to print off the job description. Underneath every sentence of the job description, write 1 to 2 sentences about something you've done before, skills you have, and that makes it helpful because you can see, it's your basic job description saying, experience managing multiple priorities and deadlines. You underneath can write, oh, when I worked here, I did this, and it just kind of gives you a good reference, some ideas to go off of. And then the company website, always look at the mission, the values, the vision, and I'd say find a couple things that are going on in the company. Did they just have a big project? Did they just have a fair? Were they involved in something in the community? Do they have certain initiatives? And then you can do it in your small talk. You can kind of say, oh, I saw last weekend this was going on. How did that go? It shows that you weren't just like every other candidate who just researched that they have a global-minded mission. Self-knowledge. Know your resume inside and out. Know your skills, your accomplishments, your strengths and weaknesses. I wish we could go into strengths more because I have a really fun exercise about your personal statement and really playing your strengths, but I'll try to throw that in the end. So employers are interested in your strengths, what you're good at, how you can sell yourself, your experiences, your fit with the organization, and really your enthusiasm for the position. It's tough when you've been interviewing, when you get excited and you don't get the job, but you just have to prep yourself to be enthusiastic, to be excited, pretend like it's the first interview you've had in a while. Try to just psych yourself out with that. And then also your personality fit. It's tough to be everything to everyone. You never quite know what an interviewer is looking for. You don't know if an interviewer likes another candidate better because they remind them of someone they used to know. They don't know if they like your geographic location. I remember I wasn't very qualified for a counseling position here in Wisconsin, and I kept advancing, and I was kind of confused why. I'm like, I don't have a lot of experience. And then when I got to the final interview, the person who's interviewing me said, I just need to tell you, I vacation in Colorado every year. It's my favorite place to be. Did you just move back from Colorado? How did you like it? What did you do? You were a therapist? And I was like, there it is, because I am not very qualified for this job. But he had made that kind of personal connection, and how was I supposed to know? But it worked in my favor. Practice. Practice as many times as you can with as many people as you can. What to practice? Introducing yourself, answering, asking questions without sounding candid, your handshake. You know how to do that. Everyone knows to do a firm handshake, be confident. But who to practice with? Besides your friends and family, sometimes they can give advice that maybe you don't want to hear, but it's still good to hear your voice. In front of a mirror, I would really recommend a video. A lot of our computers have a Skype or just some way of videotaping yourself. It's really interesting to see what you look like and to look at yourself and then watch it back. And did I say that? I mean, just because we use little quick language sometimes, and like even what I'm doing, we don't sound as polished as we could. And then mock interviews. If you are alumni of any university, undergrad, master's level, there's a career services department. You can email them. They'll set up mock interviews with you. Crossroads Career Network, I'm sure if you reach out to anyone, they'll sit down with you. And then I'm a CDF, which is a career development facilitator. If you look on the National Career Development Association, you can search for any CDFs in the nation, and they're more than happy to help you. Email them. It's what they love to do. So mock interviews, there's a lot of places that I think you can get that resource. Interview formats. What's getting popular is the telephone interview. It's kind of like they've weeded you out. They like you enough to talk to you on the phone. And then the phone one, maybe you'll get that in-person interview. Of course, there's online, electronic, there's Skype. That's kind of for the higher levels. You know, if they fly you into the interview. I've never gotten to do anything like that. The individual interview we'll go over. And then, of course, the group panel. I'm not really going to touch on those because some of these skills, they're across the board. So a couple tips for the telephone interview. Who's had a telephone interview recently? Okay. What would you say was something you did? You hung up the phone and you went, ugh. What's something you felt you didn't do right? Or does anyone have an example?
It was kind of the entire interview.
It felt weird.
I thought I hung up the phone. Went, well, next.
Yeah, like, not getting a call back.
They actually contacted me the next day. I've got an interview
good.
next week.
Okay, so you weren't as bad as you thought.
I thought I tanked it.
Okay.
And I did.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, yeah.
I was so excited about the organization. They called me for a telephone interview, and I was so keyed up. I just talked for like 12 or 15 minutes. And finally,
right.
I've been doing all the talking, and I stopped, and I could say, she said, well, you know, it was kind of like a few more words, and then it was over. And I thought, you know, I was so nervous, I talked too much.
Yeah, very common to do. So I would say something to ask if you can when you even get offered to do a telephone interview, ask who's going to be on the call. So you can kind of research, am I talking to a whole room of people? Is it just one person? Because you can know if you're going to be on speakerphone. Also set a time frame, ask how long it'll be. You might think you get an hour, you might only get 5 minutes, you might get 15. So kind of know ahead of time how much time you have. I would suggest using something hands-free. All of us kind of have, you know, those earbuds with a little microphone thing on it. Be hands-free and be at a table, be in a quiet environment. Have everything out. Have a copy of the job description, because they can't see what you're doing. I paste things on my wall with tape. I have pictures. I have like other sheets with other papers on it. And then of course be organized. I like to have a list of my strengths. I like to have that job description that I have a couple different points from each job that I've had that I can reference. I have their mission up on my computer. So anyways, they don't need to see what you're looking at. And then it's different than an in-person conversation. You can't really say something, pass the baton, and have someone else respond back to you. You're talking on the phone, so sometimes you can monopolize the conversation. But plan what you say, plan 1 to 2 sentences, and stop. And let there be silence. But just stop and let them ask you the questions. Also, some people like to put a little sticky note on the wall with a smiley face to remind yourself to smile. You could have a mirror. I feel like that's kind of distracting. But just remember to smile because you can hear it in your voice if you're smiling. Okay, so this is the day of the interview, the day of the in-person interview. Get there 10 minutes early. Don't get there 30 minutes early. Plan to be 30 minutes early. But walk around somewhere else, maybe look over your notes. You don't want to be there 30 minutes early sitting in the waiting room because it makes the interviewer feel like, oh no, I got to take care of this person. Allow for travel time. Do a dry run the day before. Figure out traffic. Make sure you know how to get there. If you can't, make sure you have a phone number, name of the person you're interviewing to say that you'll be late. But hopefully not. Have at least 5 to 8 copies of your resume, 2 copies of your references. Do an extra touch. Buy resume paper. Buy that, $15 at Office Max and put it on nice kind of manila paper. So what not to bring to an interview? This is something interesting that I hadn't thought of. It's that, so you're coming into their space. So bring as little as your own junk. Bring as little as possible. A lot of times women, we're carrying a purse, we've got a coat, it's winter, we have hats and gloves, and so you're sitting there and you have it all, and then you kind of pick it up and bring it into their office. They want to like you. They want, like, it's their office, they want their space. They don't want you to come in with your water bottle and put it on their desk. I'd never thought about that before. So bring as minimal as possible. Bring a Padfolio, bring a pen without a clicker so you don't get distracted. Bring a nice pen. Don't bring your cell phone, leave it in the car, or leave it in your, nice purse and don't touch it. So yeah, don't bring in a Starbucks mug. You're getting the picture. Just make yourself like as small as possible and refined but commanding, and then step into their office and sit. You just don't want to give them a reason not to like you, basically. Waiting for the interview, do your grooming check. I was in an interview a few months ago where I was very prepared, but I was wearing a puffy coat, which I left in the car. Don't worry, I didn't bring it in. But I had one of those white feathers, the down feathers, in my hair, and it was kind of windy in the room. And so as I was talking, this feather was kind of blowing in the wind, and I didn't realize it till halfway through the interview. And I was like, I really value your company, and I tried to, but really it must have been so distracting. So don't do that. Organize your notes, waiting for the interview. If you're sitting in the lobby, don't be on your phone. Only be reviewing kind of your note cards that you brought, the job description. If there's a company magazine, you can look over that and try to quick, look at that. But don't read the newspaper. Just really just sit there and look over your things. Also be aware of who's walking past, who you need to make eye contact with, who you need to smile. You're starting to get interviewed the second you even answer the phone to accept the interview. You're interviewed as soon as you walk through the door, just the whole time they're watching you. Review your strengths, scuff your shoes. Not the tops of your shoes, but the bottom of your shoes. If they're brand new shoes, make sure you've walked in them before. Nothing more embarrassing than slipping on your way to an interview, because there's some very nice tiles, so scuff the bottom of your shoes. Treat everyone as if they're interviewing you. Be friendly, polite, be observant of the surroundings. So I know you've heard that before, even if you're meeting the front desk person, if you're seeing someone in the hallway, if you're riding the elevator, never assume that it's not someone that you're going to work with later. Introduction to the interview, always give a handshake when meeting the interviewer. Thank you for their time. Smile, make good small talk. I listened to a podcast the other day only on making good small talk because, as we were mentioning in networking, several of us are introverts and maybe it's not too easy to come up with good small talk when meeting a stranger, but you have to. What are things you're going to be asked? Probably, how are you? That's very universal. They're going to say, how are you? They're going to say, how was the drive? Did you have any problems getting here? And so just kind of how to answer those. You might think, oh, fine is good, because it's true, but that's a closed-ended, so then the conversation's over. So kind of learn how to say, oh, it's great. Talk about the weather's nice. If you want to talk about the drive-in, if it was a bad drive-in, kind of make it a positive spin. If it was a great drive, you could say, oh, I really enjoyed, driving here today. I actually made the run yesterday, so I knew exactly where to come. So glad to be here. You can kind of schmooze them and let them know that you've already practiced driving there. During the interview, place your resume, job descriptions, note pages in front of you. I know I said not to have a lot of stuff, but I would just kind of have it like on top of your Padfolio or in it. Have it in front of you in case you need to reference it. Use the interviewer's name as much as possible. For some reason, people love hearing their name. They like that you remember it, and it makes a personal touch. Present relative examples, data, numbers, of course, that goes in with all your research. Less is more. Say what you want to say, state it, and then wait. Ask for clarification, or you can ask if they need clarification later. Always link your strengths, your motivation, your skills to the specific job description. And you can pause to contemplate responses. It's better than jumping in and trying to answer the question before you really know what they're saying. Be prepared by developing 2 to 3 line responses to questions. And we'll go over that later with the behavioral interview questions. Just really prepping those questions beforehand is the big part. See every question as an opportunity to state your strengths, skills, and motivation. I think sometimes I've been on the receiving end of questions, and I kind of just try to get through it. I try to just answer the question and make sure I kind of answered it right. But it's every question you should have in your mind, oh, this is the time I can tell them about that project I led. Or this is the time I can tell them that I studied abroad in this country or something. Just try to always have each question spin to your favor. Answering difficult questions. Think before answering. Ask the interviewer to restate the question if you need to. Be brief and respond in a factual way. Focus on what's really being asked. Never lie, exaggerate, or overstate. People can kind of tell when you're lying, especially when you're under pressure. So be careful with that. And do not stretch out the interview. Say what you need to say and stop. And that just really comes with practice. So I'm going to talk some about behavioral-based interview questions because that seems to be a lot of interviews now. And I'm going to talk a little about the STAR approach. So you'll see the handout. I'm sure you've seen the questions before, been asked them. Let's go over, well, first I'll read this. Behavioral-based interviewers believe that past behavior is an accurate predictor of future behavior. They concentrate many of their questions on situations that candidates have encountered in the past. What they want to hear is an illustration of your behavior. So typical questions focus on understanding the situation or challenge, your actions, the results. So to maximize the effectiveness of your answers, try using the STAR system. Has anyone heard of the STAR system? Okay. So let's read, can someone read number 3 on the handout? Anyone?
Sure.
Thanks.
Give me a specific example of a time when you used good judgment and logic in solving a problem.
Okay. So, basic question. So here, it would be describing a situation, 1 to 2 sentences. Say what that situation was. When I was working, I know there was a situation that we had. It was in a mental health agency. So we had a bunch of paper files, all client records. It was kind of in this back room. We shouldn't have had it. They should have all been electronic, but they were kind of old, they were there. So the situation was that it was unethical to have them there. It kind of violated all of our privacy laws, and it just needed to be done. So that's a situation. Of course, you would say it more eloquently. Explain the action you took. So I staffed with my supervisor, and I said, hey, is there any way we can bring these up to 2014? And then I figured out a way to get them electronically scanned and to put them in our, so I just took them from manual to electronic. So that was the action you took. And then talk about the positive result, quantifying it impossible, or quantifying it if possible, 1 to 3 sentences. So the positive result, it was more organized, it was more efficient, and then you even throw in a percentage there that, you know, new clients, 98% of their files are now updated and maintained. You know what I mean. It's a way to kind of describe it and go through. So the STAR method. Questions to be ready for, the tell me about yourself, give me your top 3 strengths, tell me about a time, what would supervisors say about you, why would I hire you? I know you've been asked these before. Questions to ask. So have at least 5 to 10 questions ready to ask. It shows your interest. Anything that's not clear about the job, what would an average day entail, what the employer likes best. Ask questions that indicate your research on the company. Don't ask questions you should already know. So that's really doing your research. Here's some good questions. How does my job fit with the mission of the organization? What will I be contributing? You can say something like, what does success look like in the first 3 months of this position? How would you describe success in this position? Because then you're learning more about their expectations. Yeah. So there's some questions to ask. After the interview, thank the interviewers by name. You can get business cards. Don't take notes while you're in the interview, but do it right after. Do it in your car. Do it as soon as you get home. Make notes about the interview, key things they said, and then have individual questions as soon as possible. Just have those questions in your head. List pros and cons of the interview and the position, and then schedule your follow-up by email or phone. That's, you know, they'll tell you the next steps of the process. Sending a thank you note. Email is preferable. It seems that now, I know there used to be like mail, a card, email's great. Send it to each person you met with individually. You can even try to tailor the thank you note a little differently for each person, because sometimes maybe the person you interviewed with is the main hiring manager. They get your cover letter and they could forward it to everyone else. So it'd be nice if the other people that you've sent it to are getting one that's slightly different and it doesn't just like you email blasted one out. I like this. Insert a small defining piece of your expertise as a reminder. Try really hard to think of just some small, maybe it was even something you both laughed at, something you had in common, something they really responded to that you said. So they set you apart because they may have had 20 interviews that day and they may have all been in the same age range. You may have all kind of had the same experience. So something that they kind of say like, oh, okay, I remember her, I liked her. Short and to the point. And then say, you can say when you'll be contacting them. I like to just kind of leave it as, here's my name and contact information if you're interested, you know, if there's for any further information, please contact me. If you get the job offer, we'll talk about that. Thinking long term, focus on the daily tasks of the job, consider the interpersonal factors, remember real life, stay realistic. And I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. Here's some things that you can negotiate once you get the job offer. Something that should be never talked about in your first initial offers are salary, benefits. Those are questions that you want to ask, but they don't care. So just don't ask them. When you get the job offer, these are things that you can go over. You can talk about your title, you can talk about your hours, you can talk about professional development. Do they pay for you to go to conferences? What are some of the benefits? I know we want to know, how is this going to affect my personal life? How am I going to be able to pick up my child from school? How am I going to be able to commute? But just keep those things in and you'll find them out. Just wait until the offer. And then this was just something I wanted to throw out there. This is a really interesting, it's just a link. It shows you your different strengths and characteristics. I think it's kind of interesting. I know sometimes it's hard for us to know what our strengths are. There's many different personality assessments in Strength Finder, but this one's quick. You can just sign on, you can take it. It'll show you kind of what your top characteristics are. And in these is a paragraph that it's just something that I've never really thought of before. And one of mine was a love of learning, and you can spin that so well in a job interview. You can talk about your own personal development. You can talk about certificates you've gotten. You can talk about what you want to bring to the table later. Something else that you may not have thought of. Oh, I have social intelligence. I didn't know that. You can read a paragraph about it. So anyways, that's a very interesting site. Also, how many of you have an iPhone? Do you listen to podcasts on your iPhone? There's just a free app. I love Career Tools podcasts. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. They also have a Manager's Tools. But Career Tools, they have free podcasts from trained professionals, and they go over funny things like the interviewing isn't a two-way street. They go over just so many different things in the job process, what to bring, how to negotiate. Anyways, there's hundreds. I just listened to them when I was walking my dog or while I was driving. So those are my two kind of little, check them out if you can. That's it.